Okay, great. So we are joined today by our partner NetFoundry. We have Kevin Hancock presenting, and he has brought some of his colleagues and associates on the bridge for us as well. He's going to be talking to us today about the NetFoundry SD-WAN platform and how they integrate into Azure WAN. And with no further ado, I will pass the mic to Kevin and let him take over. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Brian. Welcome, everybody. So for today, this is the agenda, if you will, that I'll be covering. I'll be doing a short introduction of myself and my colleagues, tell you a little bit about NetFoundry itself and the way we package up our solutions and how we work. I'll do a demonstration of hooking NetFoundry into both your Azure account and then connecting the different pieces to Azure Virtual WAN. I'll be covering the key takeaways just as a wrap up, and then we'll do a question and answer session as well. So, as Brian mentioned, my name's Kevin Hancock. I'm Director of Pre-Sale Solutions here at NetFoundry. Joining me on the call from NetFoundry is Ankit. Ankit runs our biz dev group, or our biz dev relationship with Microsoft itself, and I just gave Ankit a promotion there. Also joining me on the call is a member of my team, Skip Barr. Both Ankit and Skip will be helping out on the chat, so as we go through, if you have questions, you're welcome to post them in chat. Ankit and Skip will answer them to the best of their ability. We'll also have a Q&A at the end of the session. That'll be a verbal Q&A. We'll also try to pick up some of the things that come over chat as well. So my job at NetFoundry is to basically make our customers and partners successful with the NetFoundry solution. Been a long time in IT itself, really with a focus on global 2000 businesses. Prior to NetFoundry, I worked for a company called CollabNet version 1 in the DevOps space, and prior to that, I was with another telecom company. I live here in Charlotte, North Carolina, where NetFoundry is headquartered, and wanted to thank you all for having me today during your networking session. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So just to recap everyone and kind of level set everybody on Azure Virtual WAN itself. So Azure Virtual WAN allows you to easily connect the VNets you have in particular Azure regions through the virtual hub that you're going to roll out. It is made to solve the problems you see here, where you have a large number of VNets in different Azure regions, and you want to connect a large number of locations, sites, branch offices, etc. into those. You want to be able to centrally manage those connections, get visibility into how that overall connectivity into Azure is working, and to make it easy to use. So we want to optimize the security of that connection, and we want to make it agile. Now this fits very well with the NetFoundry model itself. So Azure Virtual WAN, what you're going to do is you're going to create a virtual hub within a particular region. You're going to connect your VNets in that region into that virtual hub, and you're going to be connecting IPsec tunnels from your branches, other office locations, individual users, etc., into that virtual hub, and through that into your VNets. There's one hub per Azure region, and obviously one of the biggest concerns is just to make sure you don't overlap your IP spaces. Now, what the partners that are part of this program have been asked to do is to allow you to do this not as a if you will, a one-off, or create individual IPsec tunnels every time you connect in. NetFoundry's role and the other partners' role in this is to automate those connections, allow you both to do this in one large join, if you will, and or allow you to programmatically do this. And so as you roll out offices, as you bring on new branches, as you make additional connections into Azure, you can do it quickly and easily through these preferred partners. And NetFoundry is one of those. So just a little bit about NetFoundry itself. So NetFoundry is a fairly new startup. As I mentioned, I joined in 2017, in March of 2017, just after our initial announcement of going to market. NetFoundry was incubated, if you will, within Tata Communications. We came out of a program that they host yearly called Shape the Future. This initiative is a yearly competition for the Tata Communications employees to come up with new ideas of connectivity, networking for the telecommunications space. As you build out your business plan and as you progress through that competition, you get the opportunity to present that to angel investors and other parties. NetFoundry, our founder Galil Zeno, both won that competition and was able to progress it to a spin-off company where what we're looking to do is automate and make easy the ability to create a global transport network. Just as you and Azure today can roll out global compute resources, easily scale those resources, easily connect into the APIs and the connectivity that Azure allows you to leverage. You can do that same thing with NetFoundry as you build out global transport networks. Now, what we focus on is that ability to connect applications to applications, users of applications into those applications. So not necessarily connecting sites to sites, but focusing on that ability to connect in the applications and the users of those applications and the consumers of the data of applications into that global transport network. We focus on really three different solution areas as we go to market. The first one is obviously one of those things we're doing with Azure itself. It's that ability to connect into clouds. And what we find is that most people are using a hybrid approach where you may be using Azure, but you may also be using your own data centers as well. And you want to be able to make those connections quickly and easily. You want to be able to scale those connections, and you want to be able to scale the resources within those clouds. Choose the best cloud for a particular workload. So as you migrate different workloads into different clouds, what NetFoundry looks to do is make those connections and create that performant and secure connection into those clouds. Because we can micro-segment traffic across our various networks, we allow you to connect into or connect to your various suppliers out there. That ability to create an extranet or the ability to create purpose-built networks to let people into particular applications, third party developers, testers, QAs, etc. When you need to get them just into a particular application, NetFoundry is a great solution for that. Particularly if you're seeing a headache today with trying to set up individual VPN connections for these, having to jump through a lot of hoops with Bastion servers and things like that to get different connectivity options for both remote workers and third-party workers that want to come into your environments to get their job done. And then with the growth in IoT, the diversity of devices that are being deployed out there, the different methods in which you need to connect those devices, both to the makers of devices, the makers of services for those devices, and the data that is actually being driven from those. NetFoundry really focuses in that space as well. And we focus in all these solutions in really kind of these four key areas. We focus on agility, security, performance, and simplicity. With agility, we focus on being software only. We allow you to create or program that ability to build out these global transport networks. Even though we come from a large telecom, we are network and provider agnostic. We'll consume whatever bandwidth is available at a particular location from a particular provider, etc., to make these connections. Everything I can do through the NetFoundry console, I can also do programmatically via its APIs. So we can create those different endpoints. We can build out the network. We can make the connections, create the application segmentations, etc., programmatically as well as via an easy to use console. We do a number of things to secure these networks as we build them out. Right. The first thing is we follow zero trust principle. So everything is authenticated into the network before the actual connections are made. The endpoints, each of the sessions, we tie the networks to the applications themselves. Make that we can integrate other IAMs and identity providers to ensure that you are, if you will, you are who you say you are. And then obviously we use strong encryption techniques to protect that data in motion. Because we are talking about global transport networks, these things need to be performant. We're constantly monitoring the overlay networks we provide. We're providing path optimization across those. We do a number of things with the protocols that we transport across that network to optimize the traffic as it flows through. We provide this overlay network with multiple paths so we can move dynamically across the network if we encounter latency, packet loss, jitter, etc. Anything that affects performance of a particular application. And because we are a software-defined network, you can set various policies. Those policies are centrally driven across the network. And then obviously we want to be simple to use. We want this to be an on-demand network. So NetFoundry hasn't invested, if you will, into a large packaged network that you buy into. We build the network as you build out the network for the solution you're providing. So these are on-demand networks that are built when you set them up. They're app specific, so they're tuned, if you will, to carry the traffic for that. And then obviously we do a number of things with cloud providers like Azure, cloud agnostic technologies like Terraform, etc., to allow you to orchestrate the building of these networks in a very DevOps model. Now, the NetFoundry platform itself consists of a number of different pieces. So if you go to netfoundry.io, our website, you can sign up for an account today to get access to that console. What that will provide is a central organization or site for you to use, and that's the only thing that is shared across this infrastructure, that console, if you will. Each of those sites or organizations is private to those users that have created them. But as you build out the network, each of those are dedicated to that particular site or organization. What you create from the console first are the different endpoints. Those endpoints can be our software. They can either be gateways or clients that are installed at particular sites. They're spun up in marketplaces, from marketplaces in Azure and other cloud providers. We have customer premise equipment that's installed on virtual machines, etc., at particular sites or in your data center. Those are created and registered into the console. Applications and services that you want those gateways to provide access to are done. Endpoints can be deployed out. Those endpoints can be clients for individual laptops, mobile users, etc. You can use gateways at IoT sites. You can install clients into IoT devices, etc. But one of the key differentiators of NetFoundry and other SD-WAN or SDN providers is this ability of ours to create these app WANs or application-specific networks. That ability to micro-segment the traffic so you can connect just particular applications to particular users. You can connect particular applications to one another. And that's represented by the different colored lines in this diagram. So for example, if I have mobile users who need to reach a file share at a particular office, I can create a service for that file share as a subnet, a port protocol through a particular gateway. I can those users that have some clients, so they are the ones that access that particular file share. If I have an application running in my data center and I have its database up in Azure or vice versa, I can create a network connection such that that application is just talking to its particular database. And then I can also let users in, things like that. So that ability to micro-segment traffic is one of those key differentiators of NetFoundry. So the way NetFoundry works with Azure Virtual WAN is we really have two options. We have a basic option, which takes advantage of creating an IPsec tunnel from the gateways that you install in your various locations into your Azure Virtual WAN. These are, as I mentioned before, software that are installed on premise. It allows that IPsec tunnel to be created, and all of this can be done in just a matter of minutes. We also allow bulk creation, so we have that ability for you to upload a CSV file with the different parameters that are needed, and that'll create those different connections quickly and easily. And then through Azure, you can make those associations from those different sites into the VNets as well. Now, we can also build a dedicated overlay network for your connection into Azure. That overlay network will allow you to bring those individual clients in. So once again, software that you install on a particular Windows machine, Mac, or a particular IoT endpoint, have those connect over that overlay network. We'll do a few things around that overlay network to make it a little more secure than just a single IPsec tunnel. We'll go in a little more detail in just a minute. We'll also do some things to make those connections more performant. This is really where you start to be able to micro-segment that traffic. So everything from a particular site, if I only want particular applications, I only want particular individuals to be able to access those applications, those are other things you can start to tighten down using the enhanced features of a NetFoundry overlay network. And then obviously if you need to extend that out to other public clouds, you can do that as well. So with these two flavors, I'm gonna just show you diagrams on how these are a little different so you can better understand that. Then I'll dive into both Azure and the NetFoundry console and show you how these are established. So the reason the NetFoundry overlay network is secure are the reasons you see here. The first thing we do is we install each of these different endpoints with an embedded software firewall that allows no inbound connections. Everything is established as an outbound connection. Only inbound connections, or all inbound connections, are refused. So there's nothing, if you will, accessible via the web. All these things install as a dark endpoint. When they're installed, there's a registration that goes along with this. The registration key is registered with the network controller when the device is provisioned. That registration key is part of that device registration process. So things are authenticated into the network before the connection is made. Those devices are also authenticated each time a session is initiated, and that authenticate before connect paradigm follows that model as well. The entire network is built with least privilege access. Because everything installs, if you will, as part of a dark network, there is no attack surface from the NetFoundry standpoint at the various locations. And then we do a few things to protect the data in motion. When you deploy out a NetFoundry network, this overlay network is created when you create the different services or those different connections to the applications. When you tell us where those are going, we start to build out the overlay network. That overlay network consists of session controllers and what we call transfer nodes. Those transfer nodes allow us to create a pool of those every time you initiate a connection. We split your traffic, we encrypt each individual path, and we send the traffic across those multiple paths, denying really any man-in-the-middle attack for a particular network. So these are all the things we're going to do to secure your traffic in flight. We're also going to do some things to tune performance for each of those applications and each of those sessions. You do have that ability to create a quality of experience policy for your different applications. You can create a priority for that traffic as well. As I mentioned before, we'll consume whatever bandwidth is available for us at the different locations. Additionally, if you have multiple ISP providers, you have multiple connections available, an ISP and an LTE network available at a location, we can bind all of those into one logical circuit to increase the bandwidth that's available for those outbound connections. We're constantly scanning the network, so when a session starts, we're going to send that traffic across the most performant path. If for some reason one of those paths starts to degrade, we're going to use that pool of transfer nodes to move you off that path that's degrading and open up a new path to send your traffic across. We're also going to optimize the protocol itself. So if anything, if we're going to take that TCP traffic, we're going to send it across as UDP to get rid of that chattiness that TCP does and the various retransmits that get in the way of making that a particularly performant protocol. So these are the things we're going to do to ensure that traffic or the performance of your network is good throughout your various sessions. Now, for our connection with Azure Virtual WAN, it really consists of two things, right? There's that account that you'll need within the NetFoundry console and the credentials from that. Those will be sharing the information from your Azure portal and your Azure credentials via the NetFoundry API. So using the Azure portal, you'll create the virtual hub. You will initiate the connections of that virtual hub into, whoops, bad pop-up, sorry about that, into that virtual hub from your VNets. From the NetFoundry console, you'll be deploying the software endpoints. These are the gateways that you'll deploy out into your various branches, and you'll be securing that connection via the Azure portal when you initiate those connections from the hub to those sites. That registration, if you will, the passing of those the registration of those, the passing of the locations of those, etc. That's all done via the APIs. You'll also have the option to initiate multiple connections at once as well through the NetFoundry console. Now, as I mentioned before, you'll really need two things to initiate this, or from a practical standpoint. You'll need that NetFoundry console account. As I mentioned, you can go to netfoundry.io. There'll be a get started free button on there, and you can sign up for an account within NetFoundry. There's a 30-day free trial available. And then obviously you'll need access to Azure, and you'll need credentials from that portal that we'll cover a little bit in the demonstration itself. Now, if you want to take advantage of the NetFoundry overlay network as part of this, you do that again via both Azure and NetFoundry. But in this case, you can extend those connections into other clouds. You can extend those connections directly into your VNets and then make the connection into the virtual hub. Once again, each of these endpoints would be software that is installed in. As you build out or as you identify the things you want to connect to at those different locations, those applications, etc., you'll define those in NetFoundry as what we call services. Those services are defined as a CIDR block range or a particular IP, the port protocol that they'll be talking about, and once those connections are made, we'll start to build out that overlay network. That's all done via the NetFoundry console automatically, depending where these different sites are and the different types of applications you're connecting to. So now I'm going to show how this actually all works. So actually, let's just make sure all my connections are still alive here. So this is the NetFoundry console itself. In this, we've got an organization or a site that we're working within. Whoops, let me restart my Azure account. That one signed myself out. And I think my default one, yeah, it does. Let me choose my other user here. All right, so in Azure itself, we're going to first make the connection between our Azure accounts and our NetFoundry organization. So within that, we're going to manage our subscription information. So I go into Manage Organizations, and this is where I add users. I can add additional networks. I can manage my subscriptions. I can create my API accounts if I want to do this all programmatically as well. But if I manage some subscriptions for Azure, I'm going to need a few things from Azure itself. I'm going to need my subscription ID, my tenant ID, and when I create that, it would give me my secret key. And then I would need the application ID as well. So I'd get that from my Azure subscription itself. And if I look at my particular resource groups, and in this case, I've got NF gateways. I've got my subscription ID, which I would plug in, and that would go here. And then I've also got, if I look at my Active Directory, and I look at my app registrations, and I look at all apps, I can look at my NF admin account, and that's where I get my application ID. So I would tie those things together for my subscription, and that would then allow me to start building out my connections to the virtual hub itself. Now, once I've got those connections made, I would then go into Azure itself, and I'd build myself a virtual WAN hub. Let me go to my dashboard. I've got that done. It takes about 15 to 30 minutes for the virtual hub itself to be created. But once you have it, you can then start to add in the different sites that you want to connect to. So in this case, currently, I have 4 VPN sites connected into my hub. And to do that, I can create those different gateways in my NetFoundry console and join those together. So in this case, I'd go into NetFoundry. I'd go into the gateways themselves. I would add a gateway. So first, I would install the software for that particular gateway. So depending where I want this particular branch to be, or depending what resources I have to load up the NetFoundry software, I could go to the NetFoundry's downloads page, and I could choose what kind of gateway I need. We have a number of different images for the various virtualization systems out there. We've got one for an Azure cloud and then other cloud providers as well. Once that software is installed, I can then start to register those gateways with my Azure Virtual Hub. Now, I went ahead and created one earlier, and from those, and once you install the software itself, you'll need the IP addresses for that software. So I've got the public IP address for the gateway I installed, and I've got the private range for that address for that particular gateway that I installed. I would then add a NetFoundry gateway. So I would add my virtual WAN site. I also have the option here to bulk create the site. I can download an example CSV file, and I can populate that, drop it in here, and do it, as I mentioned before, a bulk upload. Or I can do these individually. So if I go ahead and create the site itself, first thing I'm going to need to do is give it a name. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to install in Charlotte. I'll call this my West branch. I choose the region where this branch is, and in this case, I'm on the East Coast. I'm going to do it in that NF Gateways group. It's being tied to my remote East WAN. In this case, that's in the East US region, and then I plug in that IP address. And then the private IP address for, or the range for that particular one as well. This is the same information that's asked for on that CSV. The only other additional information would be you would give it your subscription credentials. I say create, and then that's going ahead and it's giving me that registration key. I would give this registration key to that virtual machine that I stood up. That would register it into NetFoundry, but then the APIs are going ahead and taking this and registering it into Azure itself. So if I go into my hub, I look at my current VPN sites. So these are the ones that are already connected to my hub. But if I instead looked at my VPN sites, I would see that I've got two. This is the one I just created, the West branch. I've got the South and the North branch that I had done earlier in today, and these need to be associated to that hub. So I can go ahead and here, I can click these branches, and I can go ahead and create that new hub association. I can select which hub I want these to go to, and this one I'll use the East. And I go ahead and confirm that. And now these are going to go ahead and update. So this is going to make those connections, add these to that hub, you know, and now allow me to start passing traffic to those applications themselves. These will be recorded here as well as within NetFoundry itself. So these are the different branches I created. They've been added to this particular network. We'll start tracking the traffic here. We'll see that these endpoints were added. This is the endpoint that was changed, the endpoint active, that Charlotte West branch. Timestamp, you know, just a couple minutes ago when I first created it. Now, what I've also done it on a couple of these is I've created also a NetFoundry device in a particular VNet and attach that via an app WAN. In those cases, I've defined that app WAN to a particular endpoint. I've defined that the service, if you will, that endpoint is going to be talking, and I've added it to that VNet. So now that VNet is talking to something else over the NetFoundry network as well. So you can do a hybrid approach where you have some talking over an IPsec tunnel, and you have some talking directly over a NetFoundry overlay network as well. So as you need additional services in particular branches, as you need, or or as profiles of branches changes, etc., you can choose the best connect method for yourself. Within Microsoft Azure itself, with the different hubs themselves, you can monitor these hubs, find out how they're doing. In this case, we've connected the connection monitor to the different VNets themselves, and see how those different gateways are making the connections, how they're performing, etc. These should tie pretty closely also, so you can get two views, if you will, how a network is performing, both through the different gateways as well as through the NetFoundry portal as well. So that's how quickly and easily it is to establish those connections and to create that network on both sides, if you will, both within NetFoundry and within Azure itself. So just a reminder that everything you saw me do via the two various consoles, you can also do as scripts and coding using the various APIs. So NetFoundry provides that ability to create these networks, create and stand up these endpoints as code itself. So as if you want to automatically script this, you certainly could do that. If you need for a particular network, you can enhance the performance and enhance the security for a particular connection into Azure itself. If you're using other clouds, if you have a hybrid cloud model where you're both using Azure and your private data center, we extend to those as well, both as virtual machines within there or within various marketplaces. NetFoundry has a few other solutions for Azure itself. So there is a NetFoundry gateway available in the Azure marketplace. We're also available in the Azure Stack marketplace as well. So if you are starting to move to Azure Stack, you can find us there as well. Simply go to the Azure marketplace, search for NetFoundry. You'll see us there, where you can easily download a NetFoundry and install a NetFoundry gateway into your VNet. In Azure Stack, theirs is a little less user-friendly on the find, but NetFoundry Gateway is also available. Now, this will download the NetFoundry Gateway software into your Stack implementation. You would then register that gateway via the console, get the registration key, and then it would be available for you to use within your Stack. We're also working on being certified into the Office 365 solution for Virtual WAN. Currently, Citrix is the provider here. We're looking to get added next month as well. And what this will do is allow you to optimize traffic or particular traffic to different O365 services via your Virtual WAN connections. There's an explanation of it up within Microsoft Azure itself. And as I said, this is one that's currently that's on our roadmap and should be available next quarter. So that about wraps up the demonstration and the solution. If you have particular questions, a contact you'd like to reach, Ankit, as I mentioned before, is the Microsoft Partnership Lead. Mario Kamaj, who's not on the call today, he's available as well to answer questions about the solution itself. I'm the lead for any technical questions you might have. Skip Barr, who's on the call, is part of my team and has been working closely with Microsoft throughout this engagement to enable people on the solution. So both Skip and myself are available to answer any questions you might have about it. So with that, I'm going, please feel free to ask any questions. I don't know if I have to do anything to unmute people or not. I'll let Brian tell me on that one.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. That was fantastic and really informative. I will see if I can go to participant actions and unmute everybody. I do believe that was successful. Or if people can now essentially bring themselves off mute, you should be able to. So if you have any questions for Kevin and you want to field them directly, please go for it.
See, there's a question in the window. How's the solution priced?
Sorry, have to take myself off mute. So we price on a few different factors. One of those is access to the NetFoundry console itself. The other is for the software that you download and install, and that's what you'll get. That's what you would get on the basic connection. If you use the enhanced method, you would also get one additional charge for bandwidth over the NetFoundry overlay network. Let me look at the chat window here. Skip got that one. Anybody else have questions out there?
Kevin, this is Sunil Kishan. I'm on the Azure product management side. Since this solution is not bookended, where both sides of the IPsec connection are your gateways or like your SD-WAN connection, do you get any pushback from customers that say we're losing some of the SD-WAN functionality?
Not necessarily. I mean, we often sit on top of an SD-WAN solution. When the SD-WAN, your typical SD-WAN solution does very well when it's connecting its various branches, but once it goes outside of its network, they often add us on top of that to make connections into things like Azure. So it's often a reason why somebody comes to us that already has an SD-WAN. Now, if they have an existing SD-WAN and that SD-WAN appliance that they have also allows an IPsec tunnel and they're a preferred partner, I think your recommendation would be that they just use that one. But so I'm not sure I'd overlay another SD-WAN if they already have one. It's really just a method of what they're, as always it is. It's really customer focused on what problem are they trying to solve.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
All right. Well, I'll jump in here and thank NetFoundry, thank Kevin and his team for putting this all together for us today and taking the time to come and share. Thank all of you for joining. We will resume our series in January. I will send out an invite for that. There is an old invite that's been floating around. I canceled it, but for some reason it didn't matriculate to everyone. So just word to the wise, I will be sending invites about 3 or 4 days in advance. I'm not going to send them as a series. We're going to shoot for twice a month. Some months might be once a month, depending upon workload and preparation. But yeah, please, if you have old stale invites out there, feel free to delete them, disregard them, and just look for me about 3 days in advance to receive the new invite and the new topic. And hopefully we'll keep it a little bit tighter that way. So thanks for everyone. Have a safe and happy holiday, and we will catch you all in January. Thanks again.
Thanks, everybody.